Okay, I'm back and I am going to review with you how to set up your FTP in Dreamweaver and how to upload your web pages to a remote server. Okay, so I left off here with the upload files to your personal FTP space, and I described to you the difference between a local server and a remote server, so that should be understood. So basically you're going to use Dreamweaver. Now there are a lot of utilities that are free and available on the internet that you can use to FTP. You don't have to use Dreamweaver, but for the purposes of this class, since you already own it and have access to it, we can use it. But there are other utilities you can use to access an FTP server. And again, if you don't know what FTP stands for, that stands for File Transfer Protocol. I use, outside of Dreamweaver, a utility called Fetch on the Macintosh, and it works just like Dreamweaver does, but it's a little bit more specific to FTP services and not so much about creating sites and stuff. So we won't be using this because this is actually, you have to pay for this software, but there's several free utilities on the internet that you can use for FTP aside from Dreamweaver. But since you've got Dreamweaver, we're going to go ahead and cover that. So I just wanted you to know you had some options there. Okay, so we're going to go over and jump into Dreamweaver and get started on setting up an FTP site here. All right, so I have Dreamweaver open here, and I have some things already set up. Everybody in here should be already at this point where you have a site set up in Dreamweaver. I have my Lisa Gabriel site, and inside that site I have my HTML pages here. I've got my images pages, and I have, you know, all of my assets for my web page. Okay? So in order to set up a FTP, there's a couple things you have to do, and it's really not that hard. So we're just going to kind of go through it here one step at a time. The first thing you need to do is pull down this bar over here where your site lives and pull down to Manage Sites. And you've been in here before. This is where you originally created your site when you first began to create your HTML pages a couple weeks ago. And you created, I have several in here, so we're going to work on the one that's called Lisa Gabriel Site, because if you see over here, that's the name of the site I'm working on. So we're going to go over here, and I'm going to double click that, and it's going to bring up a window that gives me some options. And we've already set this up. We've already got this working and up and available. So we're going to focus mostly on setting up the FTP. Over to the left here, you have an option called Server. I want you to click that, okay? And in here, we're going to hit the plus sign. And in Dreamweaver, this is going to give us an option here for setting up an FTP. All right, so what I would suggest is that you call this, and in this case, I'm just going to call it, what you put in here for server name it doesn't matter. It's basically a reference for you. So I'm just going to put Lisa's FTP. Okay, you can call it your name FTP. Okay, leave this for connect using at FTP. Now this is where the information that I sent you in the email is going to come into handy. All right, first of all, you're going to put in here ftp.neostudios.com, and I explained in the last video what domain names are, and made reference to you'd be using my actual personal domain to FTP your work up. So that's why we're putting ftp.neostudios.com in here. I've given everybody a username, and I'm going to go ahead and type in a test username that I have for this demonstration. You're going to type in the username I gave you, which looks very similar to what I'm typing here, neostudios.com. So it's imed04@neostudios.com. Now it's very important at this point that you spell everything properly, because if you have any typos, this will not work. Okay, so you're going to type in the password that I gave you, which is generally your student ID with an E in front of it. Oh, whoops. I'm sorry, you should be typing that in here. Okay, all right. Once you get that information in there, you're going to hit the test. And hopefully you're going to get this, Adobe Dreamweaver connected to your web server successfully. That means you've made the connection to the remote server and now you can proceed. If you get an error at this point, what you're going to need to do is go back and look at the information you put in here and make sure everything is spelled properly. ftpneostudios.com, username is spelled properly, and the password is in the right field. I was putting it down here. Sorry about that. It needs to go here in the password area, and then you hit the test button. Okay? Once you get a success test out of that, you can go ahead and hit save. And it will save this connection information here called Lisa's FTP. Notice over here by default it's going to check the remote option because this is a remote server. Basically this is a server somewhere else on the internet that has space available for you to upload your pages. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save and OK that and OK that. All right, and done on that. All right, so now we're back here. We're all familiar with this window. We've been here before. We're going to now work with opening up this window to another division that is going to show us another section of this window. And that icon is right here. If I hover, it's called Expand to show local and remote sites. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to open up this window to two sections. This is divided into two sections here. On the left is the remote server, and on the right is your local files. And you can kind of see that here. Local files, remote server. All right. Well, we've set up all the information. We've tested it. It's connected, but we haven't actually gone ahead and brought a picture preview of what's there. So I believe you got to click this button here for connect to remote server. It's kind of like a plug, and it'll make a connection to the remote server like it's doing there, and it will bring you up a picture of what's on the remote server. Now right now what's on the remote server is an index.html, because the index.html is the landing page of all websites. So right now if I was to go to this area on the internet and locate this HTML, it's going to show me what this HTML looks like. Okay, so we're going to do that right now before we proceed. Also, as part of that information that I gave you, you have an HTTP line. That is the line that you're going to type in so that you can see what this index.html page looks like. So let's bring up a browser window. All right, I'll just bring up a new window here. And I'm going to go ahead and type in that HTTP information, and that's Neo Studios. Okay, I've already got it here. /web design, and I've already done this, so you're going to type in web design /IMED and whatever your specific number is. In my case, it's 04. Okay, if I hit enter, what you're looking at right there is the index page of what we were just looking at in Dreamweaver, of this remote server. So this index page right here is this page right here. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and change that, because we're going to upload our web page, our famous person. Well, in my case, it's my personal web pages, but in your case, it's your famous person web pages. And we're going to change this index.html to be something else. So just so you know, before you do that, you may want to read through the information here, because I don't support anybody uploading any pornography to my website or anything that's, you know, copywritten information and such. So read about the information, the details here before you go ahead and overwrite this page. All right, so I'm going to come back here to Dreamweaver. Okay, so now what are we uploading to the remote server? As I mentioned in the instructions, back here to eCampus, so let's come over here to eCampus and look. And I say here, do not upload any other files to the FTP except the ones mentioned here. So what's mentioned here? Basically what you're doing is you're uploading your HTML documents and your images folder. Okay? And one other thing, you know, I just remembered, since you guys are using Spry for your websites, you are going to have to upload your Spry folder so that the JavaScript information is there. Okay? So I will edit this to include that. I just remembered that. So, but I'm going to include that as part of the demonstration today. So all you're uploading is your HTML pages, your images folder, and your Spry folder, and that's it. If you're using external style sheets, which most of you are not, because I didn't actually go over that, you would upload your CSS file. But in this case, your CSS is embedded into your HTML pages, so you don't have to upload a specific separate CSS file. Okay, so let's go back to Dreamweaver. And what I have found is the easiest way to upload files is to just drag and drop here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to first move my HTML files. So holding down the command key here on the Mac, I believe it will be control key so that you can multi-select here. I'm going to go ahead and select a series of HTML documents which are part of my website. Yours will be different. The only thing that will be the same from this collection of HTML files is your index.html. So I'm going to select this one, portfolio, and large image, because I believe those were the ones I had set up last week as my links. So I'm going to grab and I'm going to drag and drop those over here over top this folder. And it's going to say, should dependent files be included in this transfer? Just say no. Just only transfer over what you had selected. So it will transfer over your 4 files. Okay, and now looking over here, you have 4 HTML documents. Okay, now if we come back to the browser here that we were working with, this browser page, and I say return here, notice that what has changed here is the index.html. Now it's actually showing my personal index.html. Okay, however, all my images are missing. Why? Well, if this was a classroom environment, I would ask you why, and you probably know why, because we haven't uploaded any of the images folders yet. Okay, so we're going to go back and we're going to upload the images folder. So I'm going to go ahead and select the images folder, and I'm going to drag and drop it over this little icon and let it copy over, and it'll come up with a little menu bar there real quick. And you can kind of see now I have an images folder over here, and inside that images folder are all my images. Now let's go back to that web page, and we're going to do a reload, and now voila, the web page is showing on the internet. This is live. My images are now coming up. Okay, but my navigation isn't working yet. So in order to get your navigation to work, you have to load your Spry. So you have to grab, see where it says Spry assets? We're going to grab the Spry assets and we're going to copy those over as well. Oh yeah, you have to actually drag it over the folder here. Okay, and I'm going to say, should dependent files be transferred? Say no, and just let it copy over your Spry. Okay, so now your Spry is here. And if you want to look and see, make sure that the equivalent amount of files were copied over, you can open up your Spry and look. Now if we come back to this web page and we do a reload, notice now that my Spry links have come back. Okay, All right, so I believe, let's see, one last thing I have to load. Now, you do not have to load this because I'm using custom fonts for my website. Actually, let's see, yeah, I am using custom fonts. So I have to load web fonts. You don't have to do this part because you're not using custom web fonts. I'm going to say no and let it just install that. And I'm also using a custom CSS. So I have to also copy over a CSS file. No. Okay, so if you were using custom CSS and if you were using custom web fonts, you would have to load over a few more things. And now you can see that now my font has changed to the custom font that I'm looking for. Okay. All right, so now I believe we've got everything. So now that our web page is showing here on the internet, let's check our links. So if I click portfolio, up comes my portfolio page. If I click my links page, up comes my links page. Great. If I click my home button, it goes back to my index page. So check your links and make sure that everything is coming up and that it's all viewable on the internet. So basically right now you are live. I'm live. My pages are up and they're up and running. So you can move away from your local machine and now start looking at your web pages elsewhere. Now, a couple things to keep in mind here is if you make any changes to your web pages over here locally, you're going to have to update the pages on your remote server manually. Okay, so they don't automatically update. What's on the remote server is not linked to what's on your local hard drive. You have to manually, if you make any changes locally, you have to manually log back into the remote server and update the pages on the FTP remotely. Okay, so make sure when you do that that you're absolutely positive that your changes are what you want, because once you make an edit or overwrite a file on the FTP, it's gone forever. Okay, so keep that in mind. I've made many mistakes with that, thinking that the FTP would ask me, do you want to overwrite this? The FTP doesn't ask you that. It just overwrites it. Okay, so make sure that you verify that all of your corrections are exactly what you want. All right, so that worked out pretty good. We've got our URL over here that's working out. All of our pages are checking out. We're ready to now post this for the rest of the class to see. So how do you do that? Well, what you need to do is come up here to the URL, and this is your URL bar, your Uniform Resource Locator is what that stands for, and select this link here, and we're going to copy it. And now we're going to jump over into Dreamweaver, or I'm sorry, into eCampus, not Dreamweaver, over here in eCampus, and we're going to go to the discussion area. So you're going to click the link here. So now we're in the discussion, and we're going to post this for the class to see. So go ahead and create a thread. All right, and I'm going to call this my last name, Gabriel _ I'm going to say FP for famous person website. Okay, and you're going to go ahead and paste that link in here, but you have to do one other thing before you go ahead and post this. You have to actually make this link clickable, because just posting this in here doesn't make it a hyperlink. So you have to use a few of the built-in HTML options that they have here. You're going to add a tag. You're going to add an Ahref. So select this, and there's a little link icon here. You're going to click the insert link, and it's going to open this up here to insert a link, and you're going to paste that URL, the same URL that you pasted back here. That's this URL. You're going to paste it in here where it says link path. And let's change the target here to open in a new window. So when somebody clicks on this and they're looking at your web pages, it's going to open a new window outside of eCampus. Go ahead and set inset, and now see how it turned it to purple. If I hadn't clicked it already, it would actually be blue. And now this is clickable. All right, and then you hit submit. And voila, you now have posted your URL inside the discussion thread so that your classmates can look at it. So if I come in here and click this, now I see a link, and I click that link, it opens up my web page, and now you can go ahead and critique me. Okay? And if a link is broken or something's not working right, we'll go to the portfolio, contact, oops. Yeah, see, I have a broken link there. There, links. I don't have all my links finished since this is just a demo. Okay. While you're in there, you can actually look at, if you want to, this has just been a demonstration site that I've been using. I actually have my full-fledged web pages live if you also want to look at my full-blown site. And it's, again, in progress and not finished yet. So there is some things in there. If you just type in the Neo Studios, it'll bring you to here. And then I'm using WordPress for my gallery. So instead of actually designing my gallery, I made a WordPress gallery, and because I really like the feature in here, and I don't really know how to do the code on this, it's all JavaScript. I like this feature where you can slide. You can slide through my my work, and I like that feature. So if I go back to my portfolio, you can check it out. You know, it's got this kind of slide feature thing like this. Well, anyway, takes you back to home. So you can check that out while you're in there. So hopefully you have success with uploading your files to the FTP. You'll be using Dreamweaver, and once you're finished, you want to go ahead and disconnect. If there's that button that's shaped like the plugs, you just hit that, and that will disconnect you from the FTP, and then you can click this button here to collapse down to your single local files listing. Okay? And your pages are live. So post any questions that you have inside of eCampus in the week 13 questions or problems and solutions here in the discussion. And good luck, and I hope all your pages work out, and I can't wait to see everybody's final sites.